Today we get to talk about something I hold near and dear, something positive. Today we're talking about music, but more specifically JRPG battle themes. Some of these will already be familiar to you, but for the most part I'm picking songs that I think need to be highlighted more. This isn't a top 10 list, but a list of 10 great songs in no particular order that belong in your playlist. I'm not just gonna name the song and let it play through. I will be commenting on these songs as we go. Also, no more than one entry per game. Without any further ado, let's get into it. Number 10. Glint of Cold Steel from Trails of Cold Steel Part 1. Opening with a bright piano lead reminiscent of some 80s EDM classics, then coming in quickly with a crunchy phaser-affected synth rhythm to build out a spectacular backdrop, this song starts at an 80 and turns into a 100 in seconds. The drums keep things moving with a consistent 4/4 beat as the snare and kick play off each other, fitting delicately into the pocket left within the racy retro RPG style bass line. And it only picks up from there when the lead guitars and pianos harmonize, encapsulating a feeling of going up and over in a dramatic upward explosion of will and determination that makes you feel like a true hero, capable of all that's required to save the world. Number 9. Overdose from Blue Reflection. This song begins with some bright synth and piano running through complicated and unpredictable chord changes at a high BPM, only to be quickly joined by a folk-inspired synth lead mirrored immediately after by a beautiful violin. Additional dubstep-inspired bass instruments fill up the low end, while high-tempoed sequenced keyboards and emulated DJ vinyl scratches play subtly in the background. The drums are heavily synthesized and seek to emulate classic sounds made famous by the 808 and 909s over the past few decades, and do a great job to keep up the energy. The song goes through frequent changes, peeling back and re-adding its many layers, but never enters a territory of feeling anything less than energetic. Though I myself am not the biggest fan of electronic music, this battle theme definitely tickles my ear every time I hear it. Number 8. Sword Sparks from The Last Remnant. This is quite possibly the most aggressive song on this list. The song begins with a sudden percussive hit opening the floodgates for some extreme power metal guitar to set up the rhythm section of the song for us. At only 14 seconds in, the synthesizers enter to play a complicated and sweeping lead melody, eventually accompanied by some deep horns and choir. By the time the harpsichord enters at 118, accompanied by a staccato string section, you know we're in some real epic territory. But it only gets better when the neoclassical guitar mastery takes over right after. Number 7. Dancing Mad, full sequence from Final Fantasy VI. More than likely the most famous song on this list, this is a monster of a track that was initially split into several different pieces, like movements from a classical suite. And it's fitting that it be split up this way, as there's nothing else this monster of a tune can be compared to than classical music, or music that's largely inspired by classical compositions. I can't begin to explain this tune as there's simply too much to it, and it moves through many different sonic soundscapes. Beginning with the sounds of a church organ and choir playing a demented and somber sounding tune, it eventually picks up to paint a dark picture that would bring to mind the images of arcane evils arising from the deep to wreak havoc and destruction on the world at large. The tune continues to grow and spread into areas heavily inspired by the works of Beethoven and the melodies found in pieces like Moonlight Sonata's third movement, continuing later to build into the classic JRPG boss battle music we all know and love. All I can say is clear an evening and give this tune a well-deserved listen. Let the soundscapes take you away. If you're a Dream Theater fan, then maybe give the fifth movement of the song several listens, and have fun keeping up with the rapidly changing time signatures that would give even the Dance of Eternity a run for its money. Number 6, Zenos Battle theme from Stella Glow. Beginning simply with a church organ and some very subtle choir, as well as what sounds like an air raid siren just to pad out the background, everything changes once that siren descends in a legato fashion downward and out of existence, giving way to a brief bridge that leads us straight into some blistering heavy metal guitars with an accompanying symphony. The guitar changes constantly between its chords and its pedal tone, and slaps some insane 16th note patterns at the end of every other measure. The drums constantly keep up the energy with a very metal-oriented approach to the drum sounds, mixing, and playing. A slappy kick and snappy snare are accented by constant hits to the ride and crash cymbals, as occasional drum fills across a full set of toms keep the song driving ever forward. As the song continues, the violin takes over as the leading instrument, while the symphony supports the guitar for the rhythm. If you listen close enough, you can even hear the harp occasionally chime in with some sweeping accenting chords. A very full song, blending my two greatest musical loves, metal and the symphony. Number 5, Decisive Battle number 1 from Octopath Traveler. We can't have a complete list without at least one modern retro title. This song lets you know what's up right from the beginning, as it starts with some stabbing percussive violins accented by bassy and staccato piano chords. Almost immediately, a frantic string section comes in to fill in the gaps between the beats. After only just a few measures, we are met with a rhythm reminiscent of Gustav Holst's work in Mars the Bringer of War from his symphonic suite, The Planets. The song from here on out is a combination of various inspirations, ranging from Mozart with his heavy and frequent use of cadences, to Holst and John Williams. The main melodic hook draws heavily on patterns similar to that of John Williams' Duel of the Fates. Williams himself was of course heavily inspired by Holst, so this makes sense. The percussion section is classically inspired for the vast majority of the song, favoring a war drum march on the snare and heavy hand cymbals and gongs to accent the big symphonic hits, only switching to a more modern 4/4 kind of beat when the piano jumps up a few octaves to play some more pronounced leading chords. Number 4, You Will Know Our Names from Xenoblade Chronicles. Opening with a synth lead of descending arpeggiated minor triads moving up and down in semitones from the tonic, we are greeted instantly by an ominous and dark sounding chromatic soundscape built out by some aggressively distorted rhythm guitars, a wailing lead guitar dive bombing a harmonic on the whammy bar, and some heavy accentuated drum hits. After a quick pick slide, the guitars join the synth in playing the song's hook, and the song begins in full effect. The drums are mixed in a way that's reminiscent of rock and thrash more than our typical metal approach, and a heavy use of cymbals ensure that we have a wall of high energy noise from beginning to end. Once we move past the opening hook, we slam face first into some power metal style composition with absolutely thrashy guitars accented by some higher fleeting leads, only breaking away long enough to give us brief, epic and triumphant sounding choruses of strings and horns that usher us into a tasty guitar solo. This is not a long track, but it packs a hell of a punch and definitely conceptualizes the title it was given. Number 3, The End of This Passionate Feeling from Phantom Brave. Taking a break from the skull-rattling heavy music, let's add some variety to this list. Not every battle theme has to be heavy. Sometimes you just want to kill creatures in peace. Sometimes the feeling is so natural and comforting, it brings to mind a nice picnic on a warm summer day. And that's exactly what this tune does. The song begins with some upbeat and jovial guitar chords being strummed, as some keys, orchestra, and harp lightly peck their way into the rhythm. Wind instruments this time set up our hook, as the bass section takes full advantage of using their fretless instruments to add some tasteful tones to our backdrop. Though we slip into more melancholic sounds as the song progresses, there's always a serene feeling of sweetness to keep that idea of a warm summer day alive. The more you hear the song and listen to the background elements, the more you realize how much is actually going on. The harp in general I feel is an unsung hero here. Give the song a listen and try to pinpoint how many different instruments you hear, and how many different melodies are going on at once and accenting one another. It truly is quite an impressive piece. Number 2. Isaac's theme from Golden Sun. What would a list of JRPG battle themes be without a tune by Motoi Sakuraba? And nobody say a good list. This is probably one of the most Motoi songs in Motoi's catalog, relying entirely on synthesizers, fast-paced arpeggios, sequencers, a thumpy aggressive bass line, and a scaled-back drum kit still playing like a full kit. This song begins with a blur of patterns that lead us straight into an uplifting and epic battle theme that encapsulates a feeling of heroicism. Synthesized wind instruments poke their head in briefly to give a more exotic feel to certain passages, but quickly they give way back into the main hook. A small piece for sure, but a darn memorable one, and one that can get stuck in your head for days. Number 1. Metallic Bow Fight from Mary Skelter Nightmares. Beginning with a weeping violin swelling into its first run of 8th note patterns, as the piano plays the main riff subtly in the background, a percussive hit pulls us into the violin, setting up the pedal-toned main riff more predominantly, that will be played primarily on heavily distorted guitars as we move forward. When the guitars enter, the violin begins doing what it will do for the bulk of the rest of the tune, running from one sweet note to the next, mostly favoring long, drawn-out held notes than what you would expect from the fast rhythm section of the song. A beautiful combination of modern heavy metal sounds and Baroque-inspired violin melodies have you feeling that your epic fight is rooted in something much more extraordinary. Something dark, arcane, evil, and otherworldly. Something threatening and also horrifying in an almost eldritch fashion, yet something that is also sad and bittersweet at the same time. It is just criminal when great songs don't get out as much as they should because they're part of niche games that launched initially on a system with very limited reach. This is the case with Mary Skelter Nightmares' Metallic Bow Fight, one of my favorite underappreciated gems of a battle theme, and one that definitely deserves a listen. And there you have it, folks, 10 JRPG battle themes that deserve a spot in your playlist. If you haven't heard them before and any of them piqued your interest, go give them the attention they deserve. Thank you Patreon for this list suggestion video. If you guys want the video treatment like this, consider supporting the show on Patreon. If not, always feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Links to socials are in the description, and as always folks, thanks for watching.